It is incredibly hot out here, and you probably walked far to join us. But we hope to, really keep your interest going for the day. We're here to talk about measurement and all things programmatic. And so why don't we first start off by introducing our panel. Garrett, do you want to start, and we'll come down this way?
Sure. Hello, I'm Garrett. Part of the product team at Magnite and the chairman of the board of Prebid.org.
My name is Keith Candiotti, and I am the CEO of a company called Optimera and also co-chair of the Prebid Measurement Committee.
I'm Mike Racic. I'm the president of Prebid.
I'm Alexey Stoletny. I'm SVP Engineering at Human and co-chair of the Prebid Measurement Task Force with Keith.
Nice, and I'll introduce myself quickly. My name's Charles Steve-Veith. I am the SVP of Global Comms and Marketing for Magnite, and I am also the chair for the Marketing Task Force at Prebid. So why don't we go ahead and get started with an easy one for each of you, which is, in one word, what is the state of measurement in programmatic? Would you like to get started?
I think in one word would be misunderstood.
And why do you think that is?
I think in general, the industry has been focusing a lot on the deprecation of third-party cookie when that was the thing, and there's a lot of other things that affect measurement, things around the IP address and user agent and the ability to do this post-bid versus pre-bid, and those things are not discussed as much. I think that is what we're going to do here today to talk more about it.
Very good. Let's go down the line with that one. Mike, do you want to go next? Sorry, Garrett. You looked really excited about
I was just
that.
going to say that was way more than one word.
Well, he said one word, and then I asked him to describe it. So he did follow the instructions. All right. Very good. Garrett, shush. Okay,
Thank you.
Stuck.
And why stuck?
Because really, measurement hasn't changed in a better part of a decade in programmatic, right? So same companies doing the same signals. Everything is post-bid, not to make this about pre-bid, but the signals that are being collected aren't valuable to a publisher to basically help them monetize or to stop fraud or to do anything of value that could prevent activities moving forward. So, and some of that's due to Google, some of that's due to other reasons, but it's just same companies doing the same stuff, and now they're all turning into media companies selling media, which is a little bizarre.
Got it. So stuck. You're up next.
I'm going to go with dysfunctional.
Whew.
And my reasoning for that, and I have a list of things, but I think one major problem currently with measurement is that it's a black box. And so I think publishers, their major issue is they get blocked because of some type of measurement. They don't know why they're getting blocked, how they're getting blocked, how to resolve that block, who do they reach out to? If they do reach out to somebody, what information do they get? If they ask the agency, the advertiser, the SSP, they don't know. They're not very much incentivized to reach out to measurement vendor X and ask why. And so it leads to a lot of waste, in my opinion, in the industry, a lot of clawback, a lot of relationships being disrupted, I think. And that data is all coming, to Mike's point, 10-year-old measurement concepts on sample data. So I think we have a long way to go to get some improvement.
All right, Garrett. What's your word, and then why?
I don't have to say why, because it was all just said. But the word would be approximate.
All right, very good. Not following the directions, but that's okay.
Correct.
Okay. So the Prebid Measurement PMC has proposed a framework that can enable moving measurement signals up the bid stream from post-bid to pre-bid. And what are some of those key findings? Alexey and Keith, will let you two take this one.
Yeah, and I think before we get into the findings, we probably should talk more about what is the framework
Sure.
or what exactly we propose. So the Measurement Task Force has existed for a little over a year, and in that time, we've worked on trying to understand how do we move the approximate post-bid dysfunctional measurement into pre-bid, where it is possible to make it less approximate, more unsampled, and more precise. and actually more timely because we can actually make decisions based on the signal that is collected right then and there, as opposed to approximating previously collected signals over the past time and using some type of information like IP, user agent, some type of other fields in the bid request that are potentially spoofable, untrusted, and becoming less and less granular over time. So the approach that we proposed is to through Prebid, attempt to collect sufficient amount of signal and utilize and package that signal in a tamper-proof way into the bid request itself, and then have that signal be available for platforms to make decisions based on it. Whether it's IVT specific signal or viewability measurement or brand safety or other types of measurement, it can all be packaged in the same way. And then I'll let Keith talk a bit more about what we've done with the publishers on this.
See, Garrett's not following directions again, and he would
I'm
like
not.
to interject.
I'm not. It won't be long. For all of us up here, because it may not be clear to everybody out here, there's an important distinction between when we're talking about pre-bid and pre-bid.
Yes.
Two different things.
That's a good
Thank
point. So our relationships are mostly with publishers, and so our contribution to the task force was to share this idea with publishers, get them interested, get them involved, get them implemented, and get data flowing. So the primary use case was publishers over the past 2 years have seen a pretty big uptick in IVT. I think normally when you poll a publisher and you're like, how much IVT do you have? The normal answer used to be 2 or 3%, I think, for the average publisher. But we started to see that become 4%, 5%, 6%. And as we started to do analyses around this, it was a large contributor was data centers and AI crawlers. So now the problem is you have an AI crawler coming to a page, perhaps. It's doing its crawling, whatever it might be doing. And then the systems that be may say, oh, well, now you have extra IVT. As we were talking to Alexey as part of the task force, there's also the change coming where, for instance, Chrome is going to do everything through like a VPN. So it's all going to be one IP address. Comcast is moving everybody to their VPN. So it's going to be one IP address. So kind of jokingly, I say that the whole internet is going to become 10 IP addresses. So now how do you figure out what's IVT? And I know it's not just a IP thing, but just as for example. So what we were telling publishers was that if we can pre-bid make a determination as to whether this user in the NYU VPN or the Comcast VPN is an actual user, and then flow that data into the bid request, well, now a decision can be made at auction time rather than delivering an ad, doing a post measurement, and then clawing that impression back from the publisher when we could have actually filled that with a paying impression to begin with. So that was the comms that we shared with the publishers. Everybody understood it, and they were like, yeah, how can I get involved? And so they implemented the adapter that was put together, and then we started data collection, and that started to flow through to the SSPs and DSPs.
Yeah, so last year we put together, on behalf of Human, a free, available with no contract and with no connection with Human, an RTD module that allows within Prebid for any publisher to collect that signal and append it to the bid request that goes out to every platform that bids. Every bid adapter can consume the signal from the RTD module. The RTD module has to follow certain regulations and standards that we're trying to put together within the task force. Specifically, there is latency requirements, as we don't want anything to impact the auction time. There was requirements about privacy and what it can and cannot include, and specifically not collect any user-specific identifying information, focus on a device, and focus on disambiguating the bid requests from IVT and not IVT, or automated and not automated traffic, as opposed to other types of user identifying things. And so we put together this module to answer questions such as, how frequently can we even make it collect sufficient amount of signal before the bid request goes out from the page? We had questions about how valuable that signal will be. And we set out to partner with Keith and other members of the task force to understand what will be the early results of that. And so the findings that we've seen so far is that with the right integrations that, with the help of Keith, we put together within the task force, we've seen about 97% fill rate of the signal with single-digit latency impact, single-digit millisecond latency impact. So basically no impact, that is transparently available for publishers and their analytics modules to consume and verify. And we've now been starting to expand it out from the dozens of publishers with hundreds or more websites each to a broader set of people.
Garrett, this next question isn't for you, but is there anything you'd like to say?
I'm actually good.
Okay, good. So thank you for explaining that. Can you just talk a little bit about why it's going to be such a big win for the publishers? Why is it a game changer?
I think the actual game changer, like Keith has pointed out, has already started in terms of internet becoming quote unquote 10 IP addresses. It's absolutely happening that the user agent, the IP address are becoming less granular to such an extent that limits the ability for platforms and anybody who is reviewing a bid request and evaluating it to make a decision, to make the right decision. There is no right decision if the same IP address aggregates the entirety of Manhattan or Lower Manhattan or something like this. Is this person a bot or not? How do you classify the entirety of a huge area? And so that change has already happened, and not everyone realizes this, which is why I said misunderstood. And so I think the big change here is that retaining the precision that we're used to and improving it for making decisions in the right way is going to be the actual undoing of the game changing in a bad way.
Would you like to add on to that?
Yeah, I think it always comes down to show me the money. And I think that the big thing that this will do is it will prevent the blank ads from showing up. It'll prevent the auction from running, delivering an ad, 30 days later doing an analysis, and then going, sorry, publisher, 10% of your delivery just didn't count. And there's no way to historically go back and recuperate that money. Like, it's just gone. So I think pre-bid measurement is going to be a big game-changing thing, because we could expand that beyond IVT that can be used for any type of measurement that creates any type of clawback. And I also think that it opens up a path for conflict resolution where, because it's transparent, a human could have said, we're not doing this in pre-bid, we're not going to be transparent, we're going to bury this in everybody else's adapter or behind the scenes or do some server-to-server connection, and nobody would have known this was happening. But instead it's being done within the pre-bid infrastructure to create that the chance for communication. And so if the measurement is showing that it's bad and there are clawbacks, assuming that it is a proper stand-up publisher, how do we work through that, and how do we do a deeper analysis, and how do we understand that data? So I think it is going to create conversation where currently there's just a conversation vacuum, and then that will lead to recuperating money.
Got it. Thank you. And so where do we go from here? What's next for the PMC? You want to start? Yeah, Mike, we haven't heard from you, which is so rare.
I said I wasn't going to talk too much on this one. So the whole reason we started this was to set up the framework that we would be able to take a similar framework and start looking at it from a brand safety perspective, a viewability perspective, with the whole notion of the idea of, and Keith hit the nail on the head, like, we can talk about this as technically as you want. For the publishers, the real solution answer and what they want to know is it's going to actually put more money right to the bottom line. And in some cases, actually, that money's already accounted for at the bottom line, and they have to do re-reports to their boards and a whole bunch of stuff. So for us, this is like the first step, right? The next step, it's probably going to go and figure something out around brand safety, right? Because that's something that impacts news publishers, big publishers, small publishers. Yeah, with the keyword searching and everything, that they're getting flagged for inappropriate content, like based off of a handful of keywords that get put on a blacklist, and like 1% of their traffic gets measured, and then they're screwed, right? The campaign's going to under-deliver, and in most cases, they're getting thrown out, and they're going to spend the next 6 months, right, arguing with the agency on why that shouldn't happen, right? And I think by doing this and making it more of like a metadata approach, you're making it easier to have the conversation, because an agency can go to their brand, an SSP can go to a brand, DSP, it doesn't matter who, they can go to a brand with actually real information that's factual, not like a sample size report that when you put it in front of someone that knows anything about metrics or anything about analytics will tell you that the sample size is not big enough to be relevant. Therefore, we don't really care. We're just going to keep you on the blacklist and stop wasting my time. Right. So I think that's what I'm excited about, because this is a problem that has been prevalent in the industry for 10 years. And it's not just a pre-bid thing, us thing. Like, it really is. If you can take the signal there, you're preventing it from happening and learning why it's happening, which I think is more important. So that way you could stop it from happening again.
Was that pre-bid unhyphenated, Mike, in your example?
Yes,
Okay,
of
very
course
good.
it is. I'm
I
a
just
pre-bid
felt,
guy.
I felt the need to clarify. Okay.
Everything is
Okay.
pre-bid.
Okay,
There's no
very good.
hyphens.
Very
Pre-bid. Right?
Go ahead,
Except
Garrett.
when it's pre-bid. I'm just going to point out that from an exchange point of view, historically, for decades, we've been writing contracts with DSPs and others that account for some negotiated amount of discrepancy. If our numbers and your numbers are less than 5% discrepant, we'll just ignore it, which is nuts. This is programmatic. You should know. You should be precise. But for all the reasons just said, and these very old ways of trying to measure measurement or delivery or efficacy of an ad, if we're 95% sure, then we'll both just wash our hands of it. So there's money left on the table just simply because we haven't found a better way to do it.
What do you guys think? What's next from the PMC for your perspective?
Yeah, I think following the two things that happened, which are the validation that this works in the vast, overwhelming majority of cases, and the positive feedback from multiple publishers across lots and lots of traffic, what we're trying to do is go and expand it exponentially from here. And following the webinar that we recently held with the Prebid team, we're going to be scaling that out to more and more publishers and welcoming more publishers into the task force for those who are members of Prebid, and just learning about this. Outside, we'll be publishing more and more information about this. And then Prebid is going to have a developer summit later this year. At the developer summit, there is a lot of questions that are going to be technical. As more scale, as this gets more scale, there's going to be more questions about how it works. What is the latency? How do we track this? How do we improve this? How do we add additional signal? How do we verify this? How do we make sure that there is nothing crazy that's going on with this new type of approach? And so we'll be hosting certain events within those within that developer summit to provide technical information about how this works. We'll also be sharing more about the actual insights, like if we're talking about the bottom line, what did it do for the publishers? What did it do for the platforms? What did it do for pre-bid measurement, and what did it do for pre-bid, which is the best place for anything pre-bid. And we'll do that panel within the October Prebid Summit in New York.
I think first I want to stress that this test that we're talking about is live. It's happening. There's publishers who have the module implemented. Data is flowing to some unnamed sources currently that we're analyzing to see that it's swimming up in the bid stream and actually showing up on the other side of the fence, if you will. But if you're a publisher or an SSP or a DSP, you should certainly get involved with this. It's not a huge technical lift to be a part of this, and that's going to be how we derive is it successful? But the initial data suggests it is very successful. So I think that's one major takeaway from this. In terms of the direction of the PMC, I agree with what you're saying, Gary. There should not be a situation where there's cloud ads showing up on a website because an ad was delivered to something it should have never been delivered to. There shouldn't be an ad from an advertiser showing up in full next to content it's not supposed to be on, only to then be reclaimed after the fact. Like, nothing did its job in that case, and the publisher again delivered something that they cannot reclaim that inventory to. So I really think that the future of this is any type of KPI, let's call it, that a measurement entity can use as a clawback mechanism goes away. I think we standardize what are those things, what's the signal, what's the measurement, and then make sure that that flows end to end from page to buyer, let's say, and that there's a communication path across that whole spectrum. So this way, if there is an issue, there's some way to resolve that, which I think is one of the biggest friction points currently. Again, nobody knows who to talk to. So I think if we could solve for all those things, and they're very achievable, it's just kind of proving out that they work. I think it will be a big improvement to the way that we're doing things now. And I think the reason to be doing that within Prebid is just because it's an organization of a lot of good companies. It's all the people that you've been bumping into here throughout the whole week. So like we're all talking to each other anyway. We're all kind of bumping shoulders. So if we could standardize what this will look like from a tech perspective, I just think everybody here wins. And it's a 10, 15, 20% problem. It's just money disappearing. So I'm very optimistic about the direction that we're going.
I also think while we're talking about publishers and ad tech, for the buy side, this is going to be significant because their impact on this, it's when the clawbacks happen or the inventory gets flagged, it's usually after the campaign runs. You don't get that money to run again, right? Now you got to go report to your client why 20% of the campaign was fraudulent, which if anyone was ever been on the buy side, it's not a conversation you want to have. You have like 4 or 5 of those and your account's in review or you're fired. Like you individually will get fired from your job, right? And then that just permeates the behavior that happens of putting like a blacklist of 10,000 keywords that never get touched, right? Never get altered and just keep getting additive. And you're seeing it passed down from, buyer to buyer, like it's a Bible, right? Here it is, right? It's yours now. You're safe. And I think the more we can connect that, right, the more impact this will have in the entire marketplace. And it's a positive impact on the marketplace, right? People, ultimately half of this stuff isn't nefarious. It's just stuff getting miscategorized, more than half, right? And Keith's right. Like, we all run around. We all see each other at all these conferences. We're on the same committees. This is actually a solvable problem, right? And, we just got to focus on it. And I think if, we have all smart people here, right? They're smarter than me, right? So let them do the work. I'll take the credit.
That is how you like it, yes? Very good. We will have about 5 minutes left, so think about your questions. This was not shared in advance, but a year from now, we're sitting here, and I have the chance to ask you the same question. What do you think the state of programmatic measurement will be a year from now? And why? No, just kidding. Just one word.
Oh, one word?
Or just have fun with it.
All right.
Do you?
I think the state will be, being an optimist, is that the understanding that I said misunderstood is what it is right now will resolve that problem broadly through the Prebid org and through the discussions that we'll have with everybody. The adoption curve, I'm expecting it to be exponential to go from here. And then the ability to observe the results and share this with everyone will be something that Prebid will facilitate in the events. I think that will be the result that will ultimately lead to better outcomes for everyone.
Great. What about you, Mike?
High adoption. I think we're going to announce something at our summit, quite frankly, about what phase 2 of this will be, as well as the results of phase 1. I think that sitting here then, it'll be people have adopted it, and we're starting to look at problems in the ancillary channels, right? Like in-app and stuff like that. That how do you start looking at how they look at measurement and start being additive to that and get ahead of the curve there. So 10 years from now, when we're all sitting here, we're not having the same conversation.
Very good. How about you?
This is something that we've tried to hack through the jungle before to try to fix and to no success. And I think historically the tech hasn't been there, the understanding hasn't been there, the participation hasn't been there, the clarity of the message hasn't been there. So it's kind of a really nice convergence right now that you could tell somebody everything that we just said on this panel, and you just get somebody that nods and goes, yeah, everything makes sense. And then to say, okay, and here's this little technical piece to implement to start to fix that, to start to acquire data around that so we could solve for it. It's not a big lift anymore. That's really exciting. And then I think maybe there's a world where AI and all the other things going on in the industry can help facilitate this. But a lot of this, interestingly, I think is very much a people problem, a communications problem. And I think to just shed some light on this finally and get people talking is the key. So I think when we come back next year and talk about this same thing, there'll be lots of pie charts and up and to the right line charts, and everybody will be buzzing, and it'll all be really good.
Most of ad tech is a people problem and a language problem. I frankly don't think we'll get to 100% solve of this ever. But if we were talking about 98, 99% next year, and we had gotten away from some of the really blunt instruments like keywords and URL categorization and the things that we do to try to approximate where things should or should not be, or what things are or are not, I think that would be a huge success.
And maybe also to add, like if looking back 1 year ago, where we were, because we already were talking about the same problem, and a year ago we had absolutely nothing. We had just a concept in our heads. We had no proven results. We had not built the tech. We had not given it to publishers. We have not gotten hundreds of people adopt this. We have not got anything, and we have not seen it. We have not even proven that this can work. So I think in 12 months we've gotten to a really good headway, and that gives me reason to believe that there is a way to actually achieve this in the next 12 months with this crew. Also, we got Keith to co-chair this PMC with me in the last 12 months, so now we're going to be doing 5 times faster.
And I think, like, you guys, it's a massive thank you from Prebid to everyone that engaged on this, because when they first engaged on this, they were told no, and not no, like, oh no, that's
that was a language problem.
Yeah, it was. It was a hell no, right? And so they stuck with it. They came in, right, and not just people here. There's people in this room that have spent a significant amount of time, right, working with Prebid members, the board, to make us fully understand what the vision was for this, how you guys were going to commercially operate it, stuff like that. And in the beginning you could sense that there was a little frustration around that, but you guys stuck with it, so that's major credit to you guys. And then for Keith to come on and actually literally pick it up and say, let's move faster, for us that's how we get things done at Prebid. So thank you to both of you. Not to you, Garrett.
And if you're not a member, please join.
And if you're not a member, please join. We are actually out of time, but if you have a question for these guys, you can grab them at the bar afterwards, and we really appreciate your time. And thanks, guys.
Thank you very
Thank you all.
much.
Yeah,
Thank
you got
you.
it.
Thank you.